Well, hello, everyone out there in social media land. I'm Mike. This is Gabby, and we got a big day of racing coming up on Saturday here at Fairgrounds. Of course, it's Louisiana Derby, wrapping up the winter meet here in New Orleans. We've got the 4-year-old debut of Sierra Leone. We've got Kentucky Oaks hopefuls. We've got a slew of stakes races, and we're bringing you all the action on FanDuel TV Saturday. You'll be here with me. We'll have Joe Talamo, Matt Bernier, Simon Breyer flying in as we speak.
Andy.
Who? And Andy Biancone, who will bring into the show in just a moment. I want to bring you in first. I want to just say, like, this weekend coming up, we haven't really gotten into the nitty gritty, but we know the principles involved. Right. Give me one horse, and you can't say Sierra Leone, that you're really excited about seeing.
I'm curious to see what Good Cheer can do.
Okay.
She's undefeated. She's going to be the heavy favorite. I'm excited to see her, but I'm also going to seek opportunity to try to beat her, if that makes sense. Look, she's undefeated, but she was very fortunate with all the scratches last time out.
Yeah.
I kind of like Gowell's Delight a little bit in that race.
I like her a lot too.
Yeah, she kind of looks like one of those sneaky McPeak horses that could get a little bit better. But no, I'm just excited. I mean, it's a phenomenal card on Saturday. We've blessed to see some of these horses come back, including Sierra Leone. And of course, I'm curious about the Louisiana Derby. Now, we were kind of talking about this. Joe Talamo and I were talking about this earlier. Louisiana Derby and its productivity for Kentucky Derby winners. I don't think it hasn't produced a Kentucky Derby winner since 1996. However, the horses who have exited here have done really well if you're betting exactas, trifectas, superfectas, which I love a superfecta bet, in the Kentucky Derby. So something to keep in mind. And I think it has to do with the timing, right? We're still how many days out from the Derby? 60 something?
Something like that.
So it's a lot. It's a lot of time.
I will say this. You're right. It hasn't had a winner since the 1990s, but we've had multiple favorites.
Yeah.
We've had multiple horses placed. We've had horses who would go on from the Derby to do better things out of it.
For sure.
And a lot of those Derby runners, like 14 of them every year, just kind of become regular horses, right? Because they're developing 3-year-olds. And some of them they hit their peak development and they never get any better. But the real good ones that come out, a lot of them took this path there.
Yeah. So Epicenter.
Yeah.
Hot Rod Charlie.
Yeah. Exactly.
Those types of Gun Runner.
So, I mean, we will see something promising, and I think we have a really promising group. We got a sneak peek at the other sneaky McPeak in Hypnus in the Rebel. Didn't quite do what we thought. It wasn't a great peak, but I'm not jumping off that bandwagon yet. So we'll get to those horses a little bit. But I do want to get to a horse who has been very good right here, and he's somewhat of the hometown hope. Built is standing by right now with our very own Andy Biancone.
But first,
well, Andy, I always thought of Built as a big strapping kind of stallion, but he looks like a real kitty cat.
This is actually Wayne's assistant trainer, Thunder, who sleeps on Bilt's hay rack all the time, but Bilt is chowing down on his food as we speak. And I just want to say, I'm pleasantly surprised with how much Bilt has grown since the last time I've seen him. I mean, just a consistent horse, as you said, Mike, on this Louisiana trail. Won the Gun Runner, beat Magnitude, second in the Lecomte behind Disco Time, and third behind Magnitude last out in the Risen Star. But since the Risen Star, I think he's grown immensely, and just very positive signs. You want a horse at this time of year, you want to see those changes, and you want to see them physically grow all the time. So, I think he's a very live contender in this weekend's Louisiana Derby.
So let's take a look at that Louisiana Derby. Let's look at the odds with the morning line, the whole field that's assembled. And Built 9-2. He's going to be one of the selections. He's just very game and very tough. John Hancock, though, installed as the morning line favorite.
Yeah, and Brad Cox decided to scratch him out of the Virginia Derby last week and opted to run him here. I think he ran Rapture in the Virginia Derby last weekend. But I think that this is a vote of confidence for him to scratch him out of that race and run him here. Because if you think about it, historically, Brad usually runs his best 3-year-olds in either the Louisiana Derby or the Bluegrass.
Right.
So I think it's a positive sign that he shows up here.
And don't forget that this is the only U.S.-based Derby prep that goes a mile and 3/16.
Mhm.
And I think a lot of trainers like that idea of only having to stretch out another 16th going into the first Saturday in May.
It gives them a good gauge of what they have.
Yeah, without a doubt. But there's a lot of different directions we can go in here. We haven't really said much about instant replay. I mentioned Hypnus, Furio for Joe Sharp. Joe Sharp was having a fantastic meeting here. It's funny because Joe Sharp very close to wrapping up a trainer's title. It's not even his best meet at Fairgrounds. He's had multiple meets where he was, flirting with 50 wins for the meet. But Brad Cox had such a large presence here that he always came up second. Now Brad Cox doesn't have the numbers down here that he usually did. And Joe Sharp about to win one, but I mean the win total is going to be somewhere in the 30s. So that's just another.
Brad obviously has divisions now in Florida, and I think that really takes a lot away from some of the starters that he had in Louisiana.
So so we talked John Hancock a little bit. Do we want to see that backtrack of John Hancock? It was the most recent effort because this was the Sam F. Davis Tampa Bay Downs back in early February, and it was a very nice performance. He didn't set any land speed records, but it wasn't slow either.
No, he did it the right way, though, and you have to keep in mind that the horse that he beat in here, Owen Almighty, he not only had a lot of foundation underneath of him for the season, but he also came back to win the Tampa Bay Derby last weekend. So I think, or 2 weekends ago, however long ago that was, I think that's really encouraging. I know some people think, okay, well, Owen Almighty, a mile and a 16th isn't ideal. Well, it's now turning out to be that this horse can stretch out a little bit farther than maybe the connections and originally thought. So I don't know. I think the rail post position going a mile and 3/16 is actually ideal. You get Flavien Prat aboard, and they're just going to go. They're going to go for it. And I actually don't think that I like the post position for this horse.
Okay, so I want to skip forward to instant replay and Furio because I feel like there's a lot of talk about the Rebel, and I don't know how productive the Rebel is going to be with those two horses coming out. I like the Kenny McPeak, but we'll get into that in a moment. Instant replay and Furio faced off against each other. This is just a mile and a 16th allowance event here, and instant replay clearly the better animal here, and a kind of a funny horse. This 3-year-old colt took him 3 tries to break his maiden, had to go in for a maiden 100. First try against winners was somewhat nondescript, and then he jumps up with this one in his first start as a 3-year-old.
This race just smells fishy to me. I'm sorry. It really does. It does. He wins by 5 out of essentially nowhere. His fastest figure prior to that was 75.
He jumps up and runs a 92.
Maybe it was first time Lasix, and now obviously he's back against Graded Stakes Company, so he doesn't have the opportunity to get Lasix. Sometimes that really can improve a horse leaps and bounds. I
think it's a fake race?
It's a fake race.
Wow.
I don't love it. I don't like either of the horses that are coming out of that. I mean, maybe Furio a little bit better because of his running style. He kind of gets into the race, but can he really go a mile and 3/16? I don't think so.
Well, wow, fake race. It's just an impressive call.
With all due respect.
With all due respect. Here's something totally disrespectful. Okay, so that's
you got to weed him out at some point.
Okay. So let's do our picks for this race. I'm going to stay with Hypnus as it stands right now. Okay. I know his first race could have been the slop that moved him up. I just don't think you can make any judgment based off the Rebel though and him not performing that day.
Okay.
It's only one race. I don't want to get lost in. I think I saw enough talent in him from his debut to be hopeful. He's 12-1, and at this time of year, anything can happen. These are developing 3-year-olds. We saw, Magnitude went from who is that to the fastest horse we saw as a 3-year-old to off the Derby trail. Like anything can happen.
Yeah.
So horses can jump up with just sublime performances. And I think that Hypnus does have that kind of talent, and I'm gonna stay on it. But I am solidly in the corner of Built as far as a rooting interest. I think it's a great story. He is the local hope. And it would be great for Wayne Catalano. I just think from a wagering perspective, my $2 is going to Hypnus.
I don't know what to do with the Risen Star. I don't, because of that amazing performance by Magnitude. Where did it come from? And then you get Chunk of Gold, who finished second. With Built, I do wonder if he's going to be as effective as the distances get longer. I know Wayne has always thought that he's going to be fine going longer, but it is a concern for me. If after you look at him as a physical, he's a beautiful horse, but he's not like if you look at Sierra Leone, you're like, oh yeah, he can run all day. That was a massive looking horse. Totally opposite. So we'll see. I'm rooting for him. I absolutely love Built. I'm not saying I'm picking him, But is Caldera absolutely impossible? I mean, he ran huge against Getaway Car.
Let's take a look at that. This was a nose loss in the Sunland Derby
Right.
to Getaway Car back on the 16th of February. And yeah, he did run huge that day for Wayne Lucas.
He strikes me as one of those 3-year-olds that's getting better with each and every start the right way.
Mm-hmm.
It's, he went from breaking his maiden 2 starts back at Oaklawn. I know he got everything going his way, slow pace, wire to wire. But then he came back and, in my opinion, proved a little bit of something with his tenacity last time out and going against Getaway Car. He's very interesting. Now, pedigree comes into play. He's by Liam's Map. Does he really want to go this distance? But that's why I just think there's so much going on. Do I have to give a pick today, right now?
I'm not in charge here. I just work here.
Well, I kind of need to process everything.
I do too. And I do want to say this about Bassimo, who we haven't really spoken about for Todd Pletcher. He came into the Risen Star as one of those horses that was like, like you wouldn't have been shocked if he jumped up and made it 3 for 3, right? Like,
yeah.
He's one of those horses that you had, and he ran 4th that day, somewhat a nondescript 4th, but I like a horse doing anything for the second time. This will be a second try here at Fairgrounds. And even horses from the Great Barn of Todd Pletcher or Bob Baffert, or sometimes they need an out over the surface to see what they like. He's another one that it's a very wide open race.
Probably going to get roped into it. I always feel like I get roped into these Pletcher horses and then unfortunately disappointed. King's Barnes was one of them, my Derby pick.
We talked about that earlier.
Yeah.
King's Barnes making a lot of appearances. So that is our quick look at the Louisiana Derby. Once again, we'll have much better analysis once I can look at my Thorograph sheets and do even more replay work, and she can delve in and go through with the process.
And
right?
when
the process,
the better analysts get into town.
Matt and Simon over here. Yeah. Let's talk about the Fasig-Tipton Fairgrounds Oaks. As you can see, the odds are already there. And good cheer. We started the show with you saying you really want to see if she can keep this roll running. Can she go 6 for 6?
So she had an ideal trip last time out, but again, she did everything right.
The most ideal thing about this trip was there was only 3 horses
in there. It was
3
horses. And look, she kind of saves ground throughout, and then she bullies her way in between horses, and then she winds up beating this field by 6 lengths. And I know I mentioned Gowell's Delight that I'm flirting with the option of maybe picking her on top. So where is that 6 lengths going to come from? It is a big ask.
Legitimate question.
Right. But I think good cheer, you hope that these 2-year-olds at turn 3 can keep moving in the right direction. And she very well could. She's undefeated. She's been so impressive. But sometimes trips don't always work out as well as it does in smaller fields against, bigger fields. So the 2 Gowell's Delight, I think she has a little bit more room to grow. I don't know that she wanted the lead last time out, but because of the compact field, she was forced to go in that front running position. With this inside post and a bigger field, I think she takes back and kind of finds that target and comes closing.
So the real question is, what does Secret Faith do? Who's 7 for 8, the Louisiana bred? She can run in the Louisiana stake in the Crescent City earlier in the card. She's cross-entered in both, or they can try her hand against Open Company in the Fairgrounds Oaks. If she were your horse, what would you do? In
terms of a tactic, or
no? Which race would you go in? She's cross-entered in both. She's in the Crescent City and in the Fairgrounds Oaks. Would you say, you know what, we can rule over these Louisiana breds and take first place money, or do you want to give her the litmus test and see is she good enough against Open Company?
I would always choose the more realistic of the 2. I want my horses to succeed, always put them in a position to succeed. And I would rather my horse be 3-1 or lower in a race versus a bigger price. What price is she?
8-1.
Yeah.
Here's why.
And the distance.
But here's why I would give her a go in this race.
Okay.
Because she has beaten Louisiana bred 7 out of 8 times. You have done that for her to this point. You don't. I think they're ultimately going to go in the Crescent City. I think the cooler heads will prevail, as they say. I think the horsemen will probably go in that direction. If it were my horse, I would really want to see her.
Well, that's okay. So I know this is kind of off topic, but if Owen Almighty was your horse, would you run him in the Pat Day Mile, or would you run him in the Derby, considering the fact that he did win the Tampa Bay Derby?
Well, I think they're going to send him to the Bluegrass and try his hand there, is from what I heard, and see if they can get another route race under him to see if it was just a one-off or if he can actually, do it against the big boys once again.
You go for glory?
It would be really hard for me not to go in the Derby.
It's an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
I would probably run him in the Pat Day
Day
Mile
Mile.
and then run him in the Preakness.
Oh, yeah, Maryland, bringing it back. Yeah, we know where your roots are.
But
Okay.
hey,
So at any
I've
rate,
never owned a horse.
but back into the Phillies though, in the Fairgrounds Oaks, Gallows Delight. That was another one. The Sneaky McPeak.
Ahava, the sister to Vava.
Yeah, Ahava. 8-1 morning line as well. She's for Sharita Vo, who I am an unabashed Sharita Vo fan. I'm very impressed
How could you not?
with. I just feel like she gets good horses.
Need a chair?
Yeah, pull up the seat. She gets good horses, but she gets the most out of them. I feel like that's, there are plenty of trainers that are great trainers. They don't get the stock, and there's some trainers that get the stock and they don't do as much with it. I feel like she's got both right now. She's getting good stock and she's making the most out of those horses.
Yeah, and this filly is fast. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, she went quite quickly last time out. Now, speaking of fast, this is a fast track,
Mhm.
right? This is a fast track to the Oaks. She won first time out, going 3/4. Now they're
Mhm.
immediately stretching her out in distance. It seems a little rushed,
Mhm.
but this is the time of year where you really have to test what you have.
No.
A sneaky horse in here I'm going to give you. Quick Kick for Tom Amis.
Okay.
So I loved her last year. I actually picked her in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. Unfortunately, she did not win, but she ran a good third. Last time out in the Honeybee, I have to get my facts straight, but she was supposed to run in the Rachel Alexandra. Something happened where she was knocked off schedule and he had to reroute to Oakland. He had to ship her all the way up to the Honeybee. You kind of got the feeling that she wasn't 100%
Mhm.
going into that last race because she had missed some training. And Quiet Side was a very speed favoring track that day at Oakland. Quiet Side was forwardly placed. She got the right trip. This filly is really good, and I feel like she's able to run out of her stall. She's here. Look for a huge improvement for this filly. It might not be enough to win, but I'm definitely using her in my bets.
All right. Quick Kick. That is the sneaky one from Miss Gabby Gaudet. I think we're done. I think we covered everything. Is there anything we missed? Anything you want to tell the kids at home?
No?
You want to say hi to Ken Hendricks? What's up, dude?
Hey,
Hey, Kim.
good luck.
Hey, Kim again. Kim. Hi, Kim twice. Carlos. Everyone. Hey, thanks for joining us here on the streaming show for our preview of the Louisiana Derby and Louisiana Derby Day for Gabby and Andy's already gone, and Andy and Bilt's cat. What was the name of the cat?
I can't remember.
Mr. Whiskers or something like
But
that.
he can open a door. Wayne trained him to open a door.
Thunder. That's who it was.
Thunder.
Thunder. Like the Thundercats.
Yeah.
Thunder Cats. All right. That's it. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you live on our